Today, we're going to break down something that's been building for years and is set to hit hard in the summer of 2026, a massive food crisis right here in America. And look, this isn't about just one single thing going wrong. It's more like a perfect storm of different forces all converging at once. Okay, so let's dive right in. The thing is, even before any of these new crises popped up, the situation on the ground was already getting worse. The foundation was shaky. Millions of American families were already finding it harder and harder to put food on the table. Get this. A report from late 2025 dropped a pretty startling number. 1/3 of all Americans had to skip a meal in the past year simply because they couldn't afford it. And no, that's not a statistic from some far-off place. That's right here in the United States. And this didn't just happen overnight. If you look at the USDA's own data, you can see this relentless 4-year climb. We're talking about the number of people living in homes where they're not sure where their next meal is coming from. It went from about 34 million in 2021 to nearly 48 million by the end of 2024. That's a steady, documented rise in hunger. And, this burden isn't being shared equally. Not at all. While the national average was around 14%, that rate jumps to almost 1 in 5 for households with children. And for families led by a single mom, it was an absolutely astonishing 37%. So on top of this already difficult situation at home, a major shockwave hit the global supply chain. And now the effects of that are finally arriving in our grocery stores. It all starts with the very foundation of modern farming. The conflict in Iran has, in a way, directly attacked the foundation of modern agriculture. And that is fertilizer. Without it, crop yields just plummet. And the supply chains that deliver it, not to mention the natural gas used to produce it, have been severely disrupted. The impact was immediate, and it was dramatic. The World Bank documented an almost unbelievable 46% surge in the price of urea fertilizer, which is the most common nitrogen fertilizer on Earth, in just one single month this year. 46%! So, here's the crucial point to understand. There's a lag time. The price increases we're about to see this summer, they were basically locked in by the higher costs farmers had to pay way back in the spring to even plant their crops. So the war could end tomorrow, but this grocery bill isn't coming down for months. Now this is where the crisis really deepens. Just as all these external costs started to soar, the main safety net for American families, the very system designed to prevent hunger, was systematically dismantled. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act brought in the single largest cut to the SNAP program in its entire history. This law slashed its funding by nearly $300 billion over the next decade. It's a move that really just fundamentally redesigns the whole program. And this isn't just some abstract number, right? For hundreds of thousands of households, it means about $100 less per month for food. It's introducing new work requirements for older Americans for the very first time. And it creates a lot more red tape that can cause families who are actually eligible to lose their benefits completely. And then there's this. In a move that policy analysts called pretty strategic, the administration also announced it would just stop publishing the USDA's annual food security report. For almost 30 years, this was the only comprehensive tool the federal government had for tracking hunger in America. So the very tool that would have measured the damage from these cuts is now gone. So you can see how all these factors, the pre-existing hunger, the global price shock, and the weakened safety net, are all converging right now. They're creating that perfect storm we talked about, and it's set to make landfall in the summer of 2026. 30 million. That's how many kids. We're talking at nearly half of all public school students rely on free and reduced price meals at school. For so many of them, it's their most nutritious meal of the day, and sometimes it's their only reliable meal. It's a lifeline that just vanishes the moment school lets out for the summer. This is what's known as the summer meal gap. Families suddenly have to cover the cost of 10 to 12 weeks of lunches, and it's happening at the exact same time their SNAP benefits have been cut. The loss of school meals and the reduction in SNAP, they're hitting the very same families in the same month at the exact same time. So you might be thinking, well, what about food banks? And you're right, they're meant to fill this gap, but they are already strained to the breaking point. Over 50 million Americans have had to turn to them for help, and demand just surged after the recent government shutdown messed up SNAP payments in at least 25 states. A lot of these organizations are just running on fumes. This whole crisis is especially sharp in rural America. Here, the problem isn't just about cost, it's about physical access to food, with millions of people living in what you'd call food deserts. rural food banks face these huge logistical challenges. And now, the very data that proved their struggle existed is gone, which basically makes their hunger invisible to policymakers. So, what does all this mean? Well, the official systems, the government programs that were designed to prevent exactly this kind of crisis, they've been weakened at the absolute worst possible moment. This quote from our source material really just sums up the new reality. With federal support being actively cut back and every economic force pushing hunger in the wrong direction, just waiting for official help to show up, well, it's just not a real option for many families anymore. The system has been deliberately weakened, and the people who are falling through these new holes in the safety net, they aren't falling into some other program, they are falling into hunger. And that leaves communities, neighbors, and individuals like us as the last line of defense. So the real question now is, what are we going to do?